The U.S. Special Envoy Tim Lenderking affirmed that the Houthi offensive in Ma'rib must stop now. Ahmed bin Mubarak discusses with the UN mission in Hodeidah the situation in the city. Rebel Houthis continue to target populated areas in Taiz. Welcome to Yemen Today TV. This is the English news with me, Roshan Fouad. U.S. Special Envoy to Yemen Tim Lenderking stressed that the brutal Houthi attack in Ma'rib impedes peace efforts. Lenderking affirmed the need for a permanent solution to the fuel imports coming from the port of Hodeidah. He said Houthis must pay customs and tax duties to a special bank account. As for economic reforms, he urged the government to speed their implementation in order to ease the lives of Yemenis. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ahmed bin Mubarak, discussed the status of the Hodeidah Agreement with the acting head of UN Hodeidah mission. Bin Mubarak reiterated the need to move the mission's headquarters to a neutral location that ensures non-interference in its duties. In turn, the acting head of mission called upon cooperation of all parties to maintain the ceasefire in Hodeidah. Since they seized the capital Sana'a, Houthis have been refusing all peace plans proposed by international community and were determined to continue their war against Yemenis. More on this story is within the following report.
Houthis continue their rebellion moves against the international community. The rebels rejected a U.S. ceasefire proposal in Yemen, stating that what they cannot get through war cannot happen through a normal talk. Houthis believe that the American initiative to stop the war is about formal detours that lead to a return of the blockade in a diplomatic manner. They also think that what the U.S. envoy to Yemen Tim Lenderking present is a conspiracy to put Yemen in a more dangerous stage than it is now. In addition, Houthis refused to end the war in Yemen, stating that the initiative proposed by U.S. contains conditions, including determining the destinations of Sana'a airport, issuing license through the coalition of aggression, and that passports are not issued by Sana'a, in addition to unifying revenues in Yemen and paying salaries. A U.S. State Department spokesperson said Lenderking has presented a fair proposal for a nationwide ceasefire, with elements that would immediately address Yemen's dire humanitarian situation. He added that the Houthis must demonstrate their willingness to adopt and adhere to a comprehensive nationwide ceasefire and enter negotiations. A lot of people have been killed, and the country now stands at the brink of a famine. This could be the worst humanitarian crisis the world has seen in more than a century. Yet Houthis still refuse to accept any peace proposal initiated by the international community.
A joint statement issued by 14 Yemenis and foreign human rights organizations condemned the Houthi missile attack in Al Amoud village south of Ma'rib. The organization said this horrific crime, which claimed the lives of 39 people, including women and children, is part of a series of crimes committed against civilians during the past few days in Ma'rib and Taiz. The organizations called on the United Nations and human rights organizations to condemn the ongoing crimes committed by Houthis and force them to halt their attacks against populated areas. Still in Ma'rib, local authorities are setting 5 new camps to accommodate the displaced people escaping Houthi violence south of the government. Ma'rib authorities indicated that more than 15,000 people came to the city of Ma'rib from the west due to the Houthi escalation. The number of displaced in Ma'rib reached about 55,000, most of whom live in the open without shelter. The Undersecretary of Ma'rib Governorate met with the director of the UNICEF office. The meeting discussed the latest developments in the family displacement crisis. The Yemeni officials stressed the need for United Nations agencies to assume their humanitarian responsibility towards the displaced people. Government forces broke an attack by Houthis south of Ma'rib and inflicted heavy casualties among them. Commander of an infantry brigade said that the Houthi attack lasted for 6 hours. The government forces also attacked the rebels in Al-Qasara front, causing losses among them. More in the following report.
Those helpless families are moving from one place to another, escaping the Houthi ruthless killing machine. Coming from the southern parts of Ma'rib, where the rebels are pushing hard for a win, they take nothing with them and keep instead everything behind. The Houthi escalation south of Ma'rib obliged more than 50,000 into the open with no water, food or shelter. Once they reach a safe ground, the militia offensive uproot them for another. Al-Amud village in Juba encountered a Houthi assault to capture the area. The government forces, however, were solid to force it back.
Battles are the fiercest of its kind. Houthis came in their heavyweight. We fight them because they are aggressors. They shell mosques, shatter versions of Holy Quran, and kill the weak and vulnerable. We say to our brothers and all Yemenis, victory is close. Do not have despair or lose hope.
The battle to teeter the Houthi attack took hours before the government forces and the tribes were able to take back strategic positions from the rebels.
منذ صباح اليوم حاولت ميليشيا الحوثي
Houthi militants tried to circle around to reach Al-Juba from the Iban mountains. These mountains were neutral since the start of the war. Tribes of the Iban agreed not to allow Houthis or their national army. Yesterday, we were surprised that Houthis entered these mountains. They tried to make a maneuver to enter Al-Juba, but there they received severe blows and were defeated back, except in one mountainous stop where they are circled.
The Houthi rebels look at Ma'rib as a strategic city that will ensure them a semi-full control of the country. The rebels' push for Ma'rib, the capital of the governorate, gains a strategic and tactical importance. That Ma'rib lies in the center of Yemen and is known for its oil-rich fields. Experts say that the battle for Ma'rib will be a decisive one, that the city is the largest stronghold for the government.
To Hodeidah, the Houthi militia suffered human and material losses on 3 fronts. Clashes erupted in Al-Fazza and Al-Jabaliyya areas in Al-Tuhaita, during which joint forces broke Houthi infiltrations and inflicted losses among them. The clashes coincided with shelling on Houthi positions by joint forces south of Hodeidah. Meanwhile, in Hais, joint forces took up fierce clashes with rebel militia after they were trying to infiltrate and cause losses among them. More than 18 Houthi militants were killed or wounded in clashes between government forces and Houthis west of Taiz. Military sources said government forces gained more ground after launching an attack on Houthi positions on the Hadran and Tubaysha'a fronts. In addition, government forces began demining the liberated areas and securing roads to neighboring villages. Still in Taiz, 3 civilians were killed in a Houthi shelling targeting Jabal Habayshi west of the city. A local source said the shelling also injured 2 others, one of whom is in serious condition. The International Organization for Migration said more than 16,000 African migrants arrived in Yemen during the first 9 months of this year. The UN office in Yemen continued that from January to September 2021, more than 16,000 new migrants arrived in Yemen, indicating that the country remains a major transit point for migrants. Coming next. The World Bank reports that vulnerable children and women pay the highest cost of war.
هذا هو محل استهداف الحوثي الذين استهدفوا المواطنين وهم نائمين. هذا هو الصاروخ. من الساعة 4 ما سمعنا الضربة من الحوثيين في المخيم. هذا يعني استشهدوا أولاد عمي، هذا استشهدوا يعني أخواني كلهم يعني شوف يعني قدام في الخيم. قدام في الخيم يعني في كل مكان يعني رؤوسهم ما التقوش، الرأس ما التقاش، الرأس ما التقاش. الحمد لله
Welcome back. The Iranian-backed Houthi militia has set fire to a religious library in Shabwa Governorate. Local sources said the militia set fire to the library of a mosque in Usaylan, west of Shabwa, adding that it contained versions of the Holy Quran and heritage Islamic books and writings. According to the source, the militia turned the mosque into Houthi headquarters. In Sana'a, rebels changed the names of Sana'a University classrooms to the names of their leaders. Academic sources warned that this move seeks to eradicate the Yemeni and Arab identity for a sectarian character. Last January, the militia decided to change the names of 23 classrooms at Damar University into the names of its leaders. The European Union called for punishing those who violate press freedom, stressing the need to release all detainees immediately. The mission said Yemeni journalists continue to face all forms of violations, calling for enabling journalists to do their work without fear. More details are in the following report.
Yemen has been witnessing in what is described as the worst humanitarian crisis in the world, were it not for media and journalists. By reporting and documenting the suffering of Yemenis in a war-torn country, the United Nations or international community would not have described it as such. Regardless, the ruthless Houthi repressive machine that know nothing but violations, Yemeni journalists desperately report and document the facts from the ground. Meanwhile, the Yemeni Journalist Syndicate said that the Yemeni journalist is facing arbitrary measures, of which are the execution sentence of 4 of our fellow journalists, Abdul Khaliq Umran, Tawfiq al-Mansouri, Akram al-Walidi, Harith Hamid, in a dangerous precedent. Likewise, Yemeni lawyer defending detainees held by Houthi militia revealed that secret trials being conducted by Houthi State Security Court. According to Sabra, number of detainees who are being tried is 31, including journalists, who are Muhammad al-Salahi and Muhammad al-Junaid. From 2015 until the third quarter of 2021, media freedoms were subjected to 1,359 violations, including 38 cases of murder. Many journalists lost their jobs while dozens were dismissed. Hundreds of salaries were suspended. Dozens of media outlets were closed, and hundreds of websites were blocked. Houthis committed 841 violations, which are accounted for 63.2%, while other conflict parties committed 490 violations, which are accounted to 36.9%. From 2011 to October this year, 44 journalists, photographers and media employees were killed. Accordingly, the International Federation of Journalists focused its campaign this year on the occasion of the International Day to confront impunity for killers of journalists on 5 countries, including Yemen. The organization stressed the need to end impunity for violators of the press and freedoms and demanded societies to protect journalists from violations, threats and repression. Similarly, within a campaign launched by the European Union under the tag "Journalism is not a crime," the European Union demanded that all detained journalists to be released immediately, as it condemned all violations that affect journalists in the world, especially in Yemen. Further, the Secretary General of the United Nations said that in the world, 9 out of 10 cases of violations affecting journalists remain unresolved, calling on states to investigate and prosecute violators of press and freedoms with full judicial power.
Almost 9 out of 10 of these killings go unpunished, and journalists face countless other threats, from kidnapping and torture to detention and harassment.
Yemeni journalists are among other Yemenis who are affected by war, yet they are subjected to extra violations despite threats they face trying to convey suffering of Yemeni people.
The Yemeni Riyal recorded an all-time collapse against foreign currencies in Aden. The Yemeni Riyal traded at more than $1,400 in transactions, the lowest in 7 years. At the markets, the prices of goods and food supplies are still rising, and Aden is suffering from a stifling fuel crisis. While living conditions rapidly deteriorate, the health of Yemenis remains at risk, particularly the mother and children.
As a result of the ongoing conflict in Yemen 7 years ago, and despite the living conditions that Yemenis are going through, there is a tragedy that is more severe than that. The fragile health situation puts the lives of millions at risk, and the difficulties in providing health services have become manifest in the deterioration of health outcomes. Reports dealing with the health situation of Yemenis indicate a deteriorating health situation amid the current conflict conditions. This includes high levels of child malnutrition, low immunization rates, and outbreaks of communicable diseases. The health of the mother and the child is particularly affected by the worsening situation. The latest estimates indicate that one mother and 6 newborns die every 2 hours. Moreover, the conflict has also caused direct damage to the health of the population. The war has become the third cause of death, after heart disease and newborn diseases, and the death rate has increased as a result by 70%. While there are 1.2 million pregnant or breastfeeding women and 2.3 million children under 5 who need treatment for acute malnutrition. The health system in Yemen relies a lot on external funding, and health services are provided primarily through organizations that implement health projects. However, the external financing of the health sector witnessed a significant decrease from previous years, which made the health system in Yemen vulnerable to severe risks. The World Bank indicated that the availability of functioning health infrastructure facilities such as hospitals and primary care centers has become hard to obtain during the conflict. According to the study, a large proportion of the population faces challenges in accessing health care, as only 50% of health facilities are working at full capacity, and more than 80% of the population face major challenges in obtaining food, drinking water, and healthcare services. The World Bank warned that internally displaced people who live in crowded informal settlements or densely populated neighborhoods on the edge of the cities are at high risk of outbreaks of infectious diseases and other health challenges, as there are 3.6 million IDPs across the country at present, including 700,000 people who live in more than 1,700 random sites scattered across the country with little or no services at all. The situation is dire for all Yemenis. They are deprived of their simple basic rights to live, and the only solution to this seems to be the end of this insane war.
The National Committee Against Coronavirus announced 4 new cases of the COVID-19 in 2 governorates. Committee officials said on Twitter that 3 cases were recorded in Hadramaut and 1 in Shabwa. Also 3 deaths were recorded plus 5 recovered cases. With the current updates, the total confirmed cases are 9,810, including 1,897 deaths and 6,463 cases of recovery. Here's a reminder of the main headlines. The U.S. Special Envoy Tim Lenderking affirmed that the Houthi offensive on Ma'rib must stop now. Ahmed bin Mubarak discusses with the UN mission in Hodeidah the situation in the city. Rebel houses continue to target populated areas in Taiz. This brings us to the end of the news. It was Roshan Fouad. Thank you for watching.